Hi, this is Kenosha Owner Carol for Hollywood Entertainment News, and we are filming in conjunction with New England Music Hall of Fame, and we support Operation Mobility. Operation Mobility helps service members around the world. Now, I have a wonderful guest. I mean, I literally have seen this guy for a gazillion years, and I put that up. He's absolutely fabulous, and I want to congratulate him on being an inductee to the New England Music Hall of Fame, which I am a co-founder of since its inception. Everyone, here is Cowboy Mach Bell. How are you doing? Ooh.
Hey, I'm doing pretty good for a guy that's been around for, what'd you say, a gazillion, quadrillion years? Yeah.
Hey, me too. Got the face tape on and everything. No. Oh my goodness gracious. So how does it feel being inducted into the New England Music Hall of Fame?
It's a shock, and it's a nice shock. I'm very, very happy to represent rock and roll musicians from all over New England. You know, it's been a cornucopia of great talent coming through here. And I don't know how I got chosen to represent, but I'm happy to represent for the Rockers.
You know what? I've always been a fan of yours, and with the New England Music Hall of Fame, there are some things that just need to be seen and taken into consideration, and one of them was you for all the fabulous years that you provided for us here in New England. The New England Music Hall of Fame is great because we have all genres, from the historical perspective right up until modern day. All genres, no one's included. So this is going to be one rocking show, September 30th at the Arlington Theater in Arlington, Massachusetts, the Regent Theater in Arlington, Massachusetts. Like I know where I'm going, right? Too many days at a nightclub. Anyway, let's get back to our really cool interview. What got you interested in singing in the first place?
Well, I was surrounded with music by my family, and it's hard to be on this earth without being surrounded by great music. My,
Yeah.
my, my grandfather and my dad were both in the audio business, and I'm a son of a son of a sound man. My grandfather was an early sound man, and but I was the first of the Bells to pick up the microphone and go out on stage as a singer.
Oh, so when you were young, you say that your grandfather was a sound guy, and then your father was a sound guy, and you held a microphone and you went out there to do what, like sound checks or sing or stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I used to go out and help out on jobs. You know, sometimes it would be for a musician like Ray Charles. Other times it would be a performer like George Reeves, Superman. When I was a kid,
Wow.
we would set up the sound system for these people. And my dad and my grandfather were more interested in the ohms and the capacitors and how the wires hitched together. I was more interested in the guy behind the microphone up on stage.
You know what? I want to know a little bit about your earlier days when it comes to your earlier bands. What is your fondest memory when playing in your local bands in the early days?
Well, you know, it's just the gathering. It's the gathering of people. I mean, I used to throw parties in my house back when I was a kid, or have backyard carnivals just to get the whole neighborhood together. And that's what I loved with the early rock bands and dances back when I got into it in the 60s. It was the gathering of people.
Yeah, now when you say backyard carnivals, this rings a bell because I remember Rex Trailer and his backyard carnivals for muscular dystrophy. And I used to put those on years ago myself, and then eventually started representing him and traveling with him when his fingers could no longer play the guitar. I was the girl playing the guitar many moons ago. But no, was this anything to do with Rex Trailer and his carnivals?
Well, he certainly, Kadrolsha, yes, like you, he was a huge influence on me as a young man. And I don't think my carnivals ever rose to the level of a real official Rex Trailer muscular dystrophy carnival. But I did my own version of the Rex Trailer carnivals with my friends when I
Listen,
was a little kid.
10 kids in the backyard, you know, that's
Yeah.
all I had. Rise to anything. But I think it's all in goodwill And as far as I'm concerned, Rex Trailer is the cowboy of the Commonwealth. And I love that. And I also want to talk about your diary, Once a Rocker, Always a Rocker. Tell us a little bit about how that got started.
Well, I was a singer in rock bands, and I spent the '70s with this band Thunder Train, well remembered here in Boston. But then I went national with the Joe Perry Project, and while I was with Joe in the early '80s, I kept a diary, and it's a diary of the song I wrote with Joe called "Once a Rocker, Always a Rocker" that became an album, became a tour, and now it's a book. "Once a Rocker, Always a Rocker," a diary.
Now, that particular album, was that the album that you played most of the instruments on?
I wrote 7 of the songs, but I do play a lot of instruments, and I teach music as well. But on stage, I limit myself mostly to tambourine, maracas, and the harmonica,
I know I saw that in the video.
and the voice, which is also an instrument. People don't realize that. Yeah, the voice is an instrument too.
Right. Do you have any fun stories, like maybe that you haven't described in the book? Just something, give us a little teaser when it comes to your book.
Well, I'm working on a third book right now
Oh,
about surviving rock and roll because the bands are tough, the travel is difficult, but then our own bodies can gang up against us. And I suffered a heart attack last November.
I know.
Just had a quintuple bypass, and so my latest book is a lot about my rock and roll stories and how they engage with my own self. Um, and my doctors all told me that I should thank rock and roll for the good outcome I've had with my recovery from the bypass operation.
And how do you feel now?
I feel terrific. I feel better than I have, and I feel a little embarrassed because so many people don't have the incredible outcome I did, and
Yeah.
so I don't want to walk around singing a happy song because cardiac issues are such a it's a huge part of life, and but I try to shine what I can on it in what I'm writing right now to help people um, deal with their own hearts and insides.
That's just incredible. When we heard you had a heart attack, everybody just stopped, and we all prayed. And I'm glad you had a good outcome, and I'm glad to see you back up on stage, looking as great as ever and moving like crazy, and just entertaining all of us. Yeah, that's right. You do that. I saw that. I love you. I really do. I've already said that before, but I am very, very fond of you and your music. And I want to know, out of all these years of performing, what song do you like the best? And what is the most memorable song for you?
Well, I mean, once a rocker, always a rocker has kind of become my theme song for my time with Joe. There was actually a song called "Hot for Teacher," and not the Van Halen song that some of
Yeah,
you old
yeah, yeah.
timers might remember. There was a song "Hot for Teacher" that my band Thunder Train did back in '76, and boy, that was a hot one.
Oh yeah, I like that song. And I think I was telling you about this, but there's so many people around you. You probably couldn't hear me at the Northeast Comic Con there. That particular song reminds me of a very old band called Orphan Annie. And
Mm.
Orphan Annie was around like the 70s into the 80s, and then they switched singers, and then the whole thing went upside down. Anyways, it had almost that same type of tune with it, guitar riffs and stuff like that. And what I liked best about it was the warm tones of analog sound. Now, how do you feel about analog sound versus the new digital sound?
Well, of course, my the music really is a time capsule between the sounds of our instruments, what we were thinking, and what we were singing about. We're talking about we're getting down to very. It's hard to describe to somebody what's the difference between '60s music, '70s music, '80s music, but.
Yeah.
Uh, and taking those pieces of music out of that time and throwing it in front of somebody, from this generation, it's hard to do that without putting the person into a time bubble to put them back into the time when the music was created, to really understand the breadth of it. I love all of it. You know, there's certain things about this new digital music that's really fun. It's easier to make a big sounding band and a powerful sounding record than it used to be. You
Yeah.
remember back in the analog days, a lot of us hard, heavy bands would go into the studio and come out with kind of thin sounding records. It was hard to capture the live sound in a studio.
Right. I understand that. And the thing is, I interviewed Don Randy, and he's, with the Wrecking Crew, and he was also part of Phil Spector's Wall of Sound. And that's how they created their big sound, was having all these piano players playing at different levels all at the same time. And that really filled everything up. He was explaining it to me. And I just thought that was so wonderful and powerful that maybe someday somebody will recreate that particular type of sound, maybe using analog, but if not, using digital. So that would be a cool thing to think about.
Well, it's manpower intensive, when you add, instead of just turning up the fader on the piano, add two more piano players. I mean,
Yeah,
that's how symphony orchestras started.
that's,
Not enough violin, adds four more strings, add three more cellos, and
yeah.
the sections would just get bigger. That's back before my grandfather started doing sound.
Yeah.
Imagine what it was like before there were microphones and speakers. Nobody could hear you speak unless you yelled really loud. And
Well,
then it
yeah,
was up.
in the theaters, I just wonder if they were acoustically sound as far as having the voice be able to project to the back rows, whether you're in opera or doing a theatrical like play or band years ago, like the orchestra. That would be something to research. I know there's an answer, and I'm sure it's probably more that it's acoustically sound made room for that.
Well, I think the acoustics at the Regent Theater in Arlington are perfect, but still, I'll be glad to have a microphone on September 30th when I sing my song there at the
Well,
Hall of Fame.
the microphone and watching you, especially watching you, you know how to move the microphone. And that's what really gets the crowd going. It's the props that you use. It's the entertainer within your heart that you give to everyone. And everyone just starts moving and going crazy when they're watching you. And I'm looking forward to September 30th because I'm one of the presenters. So I don't know if they have it on my list to be able to give you the trophy, but it's going to be wonderful. And now you're performing. And do you know what you're performing?
It's going to be a big surprise, and it's going to be just for you.
Can you call me later and tell me? I promise. I won't tell anybody. Hey, listen, can you give young drummers or young people in the entertainment industry maybe some encouraging words?
Well, sure. Get out there and rock, my friends. And I think the business is only getting bigger, and in some ways easier to get your music out there. So get it going, and then once you get it going, let Cowboy Mach Bell know that you're doing it, and maybe you can play in my band, The Experience.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Now, the other thing I want from you is a positive message. You know your fans live vicariously through you. What positive message do you have for your fans?
Try to walk 10,000 steps every day. Look out for the salt and sugar, and watch Svengoolie every Saturday night.
Oh, excellent. Now, listen, I'm going to ask you a question. How did you get that name, Mach Bell?
Mach
Never mind,
Bell.
never mind the cowboy part.
Yeah, Cowboy. Yeah. Mach Bell. The thing was, Mark Bell is a really popular rock and roll name. There's a whole bunch of guys named Mark Bell, and that was the name my mom gave me when I was little, was Mark. There's another guy named Mark Bell who you know as Marky Ramone. He had to change his name from Bell to Ramone when he joined the Ramones. There's another guy that produces Bjorn records named Mark Bell, and then
Mhm.
there was me. And when I was racing to be the first guy to get signed with Marky Ramone, we both ended up changing our names. I changed to Mach Bell because that's how we say Mark in Boston anyway. Everybody said, here's the new record from Mach Bell. And by the time I changed to Mach Bell, Mark Bell had changed his name to Marky Ramone. So that's the long, confused answer. Now there's no Mark Bell.
I thought it was because, believe it or not, it sounds more Boston, Mach Bell.
Well, yeah, that's where it started. The DJs named me that. They all call me Mach Bell. So I said, why not go with it?
Sure. Now, where'd you get the cowboy part from?
That was because I used to do cowboy beeps when I was a kid. And when Joe found out about cowboy beeps, he said, what are you talking about? And he started calling me cowboy. To find out the secret behind that, you'll have to read my book.
Absolutely. And people, let's find out about this book. I can't wait to read it myself. I'm going to have the website listed right underneath, but I'm going to tell you, thank you very much for this interview, Mach Bell. This is Carol Carroll from Hollywood Entertainment News. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
See you September 30th.
Excellent. You did